So let's move on to the receivers, Rich. So, you know, obviously we know who 1 and 2 are between, Ayuk and Debo. However, all the talk up until this point was who's going to slot in at that, three position, wide receiver three position, and who were going to be the, final six to make the roster. We had Jalen Hurd in there, obviously Richie James Jr., but now, you know, after preseason game one and seeing what's happening through training camp, it's starting to shake a little bit where some guys are starting to really pull away from the pack, I would say. What have you seen as far as overall out of the wide receivers, and who are you liking, and who do you end up believing will make the final roster?
This is not a good group after the first two or three guys. Obviously, the top two, Ayuk and Debo. After that, I mean, you could really think. I don't think it's really that set in stone. I mean, you've got Sanu, who I think he probably makes it. I don't think Richie James.
He forgot how to catch the ball all of a sudden.
He did not have a good game. But then neither did some of the other receivers. Travis Benjamin didn't look great. Jennings, he probably makes it in there as a fifth or a sixth guy. It's thin, man. And I don't even think Hurd got any reps in the game.
I don't think he's practicing. I think he was
practicing. So he had the thing last week where he missed a few days, and then he got blasted by he got blasted by Wes Welker, and then the next day got blasted by Shanahan for basically saying if he can't find a way to get back on the field, we can't guarantee him a spot, basically.
Right.
And then he started practicing the 3 or 4 days leading up to the game, and then I don't think he got any reps in the game. I think they held him out. So, and that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they've seen something in those 4 days that makes them kind of say, okay, we can sit him out this one and get him physically ready for the next one and get him some reps. But with him, it's just such a wild card because he hasn't, they didn't have any preseason games last year, but he missed part of the training camp last year with an injury. Didn't play last year. Didn't get any official snaps in 2019 after the preseason ended because of his injuries. It's going to be tough. There's not a lot, but there's not a lot of depth back there. They need guys. They probably might want to consider carrying 7 guys and not 6.
Now, there is one player that I think.
They just lost Austin Watkins for the season, so he's right. Another guy you can't rule in to make the roster.
Now, one guy that I feel like is kind of separating themselves that we didn't expect is Trent Sherfield.
Yeah, so I think he's definitely going to make it. I don't think there's any question about that.
And I think he could be a real productive player as well. It seems like he gives a dynamic that, I think what they wanted Travis Benjamin to be is that like burner that could go deep. And it looks like, without even knowing it, Sherfield can play that role. And, he was on stacked behind Fitzgerald and D-Hop and Kirk and stuff on Arizona and didn't really get to show out too much just because he had bigger names that probably were playing better than him. But it seems like he's taking full advantage of his opportunity with the 49ers. And I think that, that top 4, I know you said it's pretty thin. I think Sanu and Sherfield, and you could even add Jennings in there, aren't necessarily like people that are just going to be on the field for every single down, but they all have a special role that they could play in positional football. With Jennings and Sanu down in the red zone, I think would be really great options, as well as Sherfield, being able to be that burner down the line. So I know you're saying this wide receiver core is thin and weak, but I think that they're going to be all right, man. Especially if Trey's there, I think he could utilize these guys really well.
Yeah, I mean, this is an offense they're going to spread the ball around. Did I say that right? Juszczyk?
Juszczyk, yeah.
I sometimes say it like it's spelled. He's going to get his fair share of targets. Kittle, obviously, given
Yeah.
Dwelly's a reliable pass catcher. They're going to find a way. They're going to have to find ways to manufacture targets for the third and fourth wide receivers. So, Shanahan's a big 21 personnel guy, which means he's only going to have Debo and Ayuk out there if they're both healthy as receivers, and then you're going to have Kittle, either Mostert or Sermon, and then the fullback, and he's going to go 5 wide with that a bunch. So it's going to be tough to manufacture targets for guys that are outside the third spot, probably.
So Coach Timo says James is slacking to me and on special teams, way too bland. Jennings has looked good. Hurd is a mystery. I don't get him. Great opportunity, but zero. Sherfield has been good. And Simba is a guy who kind of stood out. Obviously, with Richie James, not playing well as a receiver, not showing much even in the kicking game. Simba came out and played really well. I know he has some fumble issues with the Rams, but was there anything out of him that impressed you? And is he somebody that you would like to see make the team, Rich?
Who is that?
So he was the guy who came from the Rams as a punt return and kick return specialist. He had that sweep that went for.
And he misread the punt. He's not going to be a guy that ever gets on the field as a receiver. As a kick returner, if could be valuable there. It didn't look promising after the first game, but and then as a punt returner, I wouldn't be surprised if Ayuk gets some reps back there as a punt returner.
Mm-hmm.
Richie James, I've never been a fan, and he's a guy that comes in once in a while. He gets his reps, and when people are hurt, and then even oftentimes when guys are hurt, he doesn't. There's some games he just hardly gets any reps.
Right.
And I think that's just kind of been the case with him the whole time. I've heard from people that attend in-season practices that he's not even very good in practice. And, Coach Timo would probably speak to this. If you don't practice good, you're not going to see the field in a game. And that's just true at every level, I think. And he's just been a guy who's just kind of floated around to me. They've kept him around because they've needed him. And I don't, with the depth, the hit that the depth took this year, I still think he's a guy that's probably expendable. I just don't think.
Yeah, it seems like, he doesn't have a great rapport with Trey Lance. Doesn't seem like he could catch the ball with the velocity that Lance is throwing at him. Not only in the preseason game, you've been hearing that through training camp from all the insiders that are watching there, that he's dropping a lot of the passes from him. Knowing that Trey Lance is the future, whether it's game 1 or, week 1 or, middle of the season, if you can't catch the ball that he's throwing, you're probably not going to make it onto the field too often either. So, yeah, but Rich, that's what I had for you. Was there anything else that, stood out to you, or your overall impressions from week 1 that you wanted to discuss?
No, I think we hit the highlights. I think that was a good recap of the first week. Kind of what we all expected.
Yeah. Madison, Literal, I think is how you pronounce it, or Literal. Sorry if I'm butchering that, Madison, but thoughts on signing cornerback Devontae Harris? Obviously this is why Rosen was cut, bringing in this guy who previously played for the Ravens. Do you know much about him, Rich?
I do not. It just sounds like a way to test the depth and see what else is out there. I think they're kind of thin at corner after Mosley and Verrett, and some of the younger guys that are rookies. I think they want to really kind of test and see what else they can find to add some depth.
Yeah, I think they just want to carry more corners overall. Some of these guys might even be utilized in the receiving or kick returning game as well. He came special teamers. He came from the Ravens, who seem to always produce really good corners. So I'm sure he's picked up a lot over there, and whatever added he could bring to the team, if he makes it, I think will be a benefit.